Welcome to the Road to Redemption podcast with your host, Cam Williamson. Each week, Cam sets out to shatter the labels and stigmas associated with mental health awareness by giving life lessons and raw overviews of events happening around the world.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast, as you heard. And as always, I'm your host, Cam Williamson. Great to be back with you. Today, we're talking PTSD. We know that. I talk about it all the time. You guys know about it. You hear about it. We traditionally know about it from soldiers coming back from war, sailors, Marines, not discriminating. We also know that there's something out there now called CPTSD. What's that C stand for? Complex. Well, frick. All PTSD is complex. Why? Because not all PTSD looks the same. Not all people with PTSD have issues in large crowds. Some of them still love to go to hardcore metal bands and bang out in the mosh pit. Some of them do have an issue going to a grocery store. We're going to talk about stuff like that later. But right now, we're going to talk about what's the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. PTSD is defined by a stress response you went through in a single moment in time. Now, that single moment in time could be a 9-month deployment where you kept getting in firefights, where you have PTSD from either being shot at, seeing a wounded brother or sister, whatever the issue was, there was something that happened in a moment that you had to respond to or respond through that caused you to now, in other parts of your life, go into fight or flight survival mode when it's maybe not necessary. And that's where PTSD deciphers from complex PTSD, where that usually comes from extended time. This is people's upbringing. So if you were abused sexually, physically, emotionally, any of those ways as a child, right? If you were abused as a child, you grew up seeing the world completely different. So you standing in the living room, playing and having fun as a kid, and someone being like, sit down and shut up, you piece of garbage. Why are you so dumb? That is abuse, right? That's abuse. So growing up that way, even if you dealt with it for 7 years, right? And then after that, your parents got their shit together, whatever the issue was. But if you deal with that in your formidable years, and then you go out in the world and you think that by being yourself somehow means that you're not safe or you're going to be attacked, oh, Lord have mercy. Well, that opens us up to every type of negative encounter possible, which turns into what? Things like catastrophizing, which, as someone who has PTSD, it's very common, which makes going to things like the grocery store, movie theaters, concerts, stuff like that, difficult because you've already thought of the worst case scenario and you had to because you had to plan for a way out in case that happened. And that's what you were trained to do. Now that's as military, and that's also as law enforcement and firefighters and stuff like that. We don't give enough credit and we don't speak on enough law enforcement and firefighters and daily complex PTSD and possible PTSD in and of itself. Here's the problem, where we talk all the time that everything in mental health kind of blurs together. Well, here we have a perfect example. We just talked about borderline personality disorder, and CPTSD borderlines right up to it. Well, dang. So with borderline personality disorder, remember, it's not bipolar disorder, meaning it's a chemical thing that they can show. That's why you're responding that way instead of it's just what you're choosing to do. In borderline personality disorder, there's still a belief that you have the tools and resources to not act that way, and you're choosing not to. So then you could take someone out of borderline personality disorder, not put them in bipolar, but you could slide them over into complex PTSD and go, oh, because of the way they were raised or because of a relationship they were in the last 5-10 years, this person is so skewed on the world, they really don't have the choice to not respond that way because they're acting out of survival or fight or flight. Okay, we have commonalities, and I bet if we went over to bipolar, those things are very similar to PTSD. That's for another episode maybe. So why do things like going to grocery stores and movie theaters bother some veterans and not others? Well, in my experience, I was deployed to Guantanamo Bay. So anytime you're in a confined space with another person, the chance of shit popping off is pretty high. Pretty high. All the time. So when you're not in that situation, if you're not in a small confined space with someone, you're maybe in a smaller but larger than previous confined space watching other people. And at any moment, shit could pop off, so you have to be ready and on guard. Not to mention, you have to be aware of everything that you're hearing and feeling and sensing around you. Your senses are heightened all the time. I was never in Afghanistan or Iraq, but I know that when you're going through patrols, that heightened sense of awareness and planning and what could be where, that's what you're trained to do. So when you come home and you realize, okay, these other people have not had this training and they don't think about things like this, they're more worried about whatever's on the news or whatever they're watching, the latest Squid Game episodes, they're not even thinking about if somebody was to come in here and shoot this shit up. That stresses me out. Okay, now I feel like I need to protect all these people like I would if they were my team or in my platoon. Well, I can't do that because they're not going to listen to me because they don't fucking know me. Nor should they listen to me, right? So it's like, okay, there's all these complexities in it. Let me just not go. I'll watch the movie when it comes out and it's streaming, or I'll go to the grocery store later when there's not as many people around. I just, it's easier to do that. Where with complex PTSD, you could be raised to think you're not shit and you ain't worth shit and you don't have any talent, skills, and you're not worth anything to anyone. So perfect example, if I was raised that way, I've had to record this episode. This is the third time now. First time video messed up. Second time I was completely done. Lost the audio in editing. Just accidentally deleted it and couldn't get it back. And I was like, you know what? Let me just run with it. I have the video or the audio from the video. Let me just run with it. Guys, it sounded terrible. It looked terrible. And there was no way I could fix it. And I was like, you know what? Nobody cares anyway, right? The chances of people listening to this are like whatever, probably not. So let me just submit this as good enough because I'm good enough. And I was like, nah, man, not today. Not on this show, we're not doing that. Because if we're really breaking through the stigmas of mental health, we see that we need not attach to the identity of the diagnosis because Lord knows it could change daily. But what we need to do is find out where the trauma responses come from, and when you feel unsafe, how do you respond? Why do you respond that way? And take away who's responsible for it, right? That's just for you. That's a secondary gift I'll give you, which is called forgiveness that you didn't ask for, right? So you can just let go of the judgment, right, of the person who maybe mistreated you in your upbringing or treated you poorly in a relationship or did you wrong in a business deal. You had to work in a situation where people were bad to you. You can observe the situation without needing to hate that person. And that takes a long time because especially I believe in sexual assault cases or sexual harassment cases, it's such a violation of a privacy that anytime you're in your private time or space, you feel like it's violated already. So you can never truly be comfortable. And that's a big part of PTSD is you can never allow yourself to relax. Rarely is it just one single moment, right? A deployment's not going to go down where everything's hunky-dory and then randomly you're looking at the guy laying on the ground and he's all busted up and that's the reason you now can't cope with life. It's been a tough deployment, or you had a tough week out there, you had a tough month during the deployment, or you're in a situation where things are constantly just heightened stress, and then an isolated incident happens that you look and go, okay, a person had to live in survival mode, fight or flight, for a extended period of time that their body dealt with, and you should be proud of that shit. Remember that. But now it doesn't necessarily need to deal with things this way. Let's teach our brain how to go back to being the kid dancing in the middle of the room where no one's judging us, no one's hating us, no one's assaulting us verbally, physically, whatever. We can be happy and relaxed in ourselves again, regardless of whatever triggered the moment, whether you call it PTSD, CPTSD, bipolar, borderline personality, whether it came from your mom, your girlfriend, your uncle. It doesn't really matter. To your story, it does. And I'm not trying to invalidate anyone. But I'm saying to your healing, the only thing that matters is you identify where the problem comes from, see why you're responding the way you do, and move it forward. Now, holding people responsible is a separate category in life. That's maybe coming for a separate video. I'm not going to go on a rant about that. Guys, I love you so much. I hope this video helped. I think I was able, actually, through 3 recordings of it, to pull it together tighter and not so loosey-goosey, so good. I hope that benefits some of you in a more crisp, clean presentation. If you want to check out any of the new designs you're seeing, head on over to the roadtoredemptionpodcast.com. If you've made it this far, please thumbs up the video, subscribe. If you want to see everything as soon as I drop it, hit the little bell thing. It's good. It helps us. You guys hitting the thumbs up button is crucial. You guys have been doing great with that. Thank you so much. It means the world. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know anything you want me to touch on in the next episode. I'm going to try to put one up Friday, but that is Christmas Eve. So maybe I'll do something a little special for you guys, a little Christmas Eve, virtual Christmas card, something, not making any promises, but maybe Santa will come down the chimney for you. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you later.